Hey, Russell here. If you are thinking about applying to become a police officer, I'm sure you're aware that there's a number of tests and different assessments that you'll need to pass in order to be offered a position as a police officer. But there's also a lot going on in the background that I really want you to understand. So in this video series, we're going to go through some of that additional information that you need to be aware of so that you can prepare yourself properly for what is a pretty challenging and competitive police application. Okay, let's jump straight into it. I want to start with the end in mind and just answer the question, what happens at the end of the process if I pass everything? How does it work? When do I get to start? Now, what's really important is you understand this process. The order of merit, sometimes called the pool of candidates, is where applicants are placed when they successfully complete the application process. So let's take a close look at how that actually works and what you're in for if you can make it to that stage. Okay, so think of the order of merit much like a ladder, where all of the applicants who have completed the process successfully are placed into what they call the order of merit, or sometimes called a pool of candidates. But essentially it's a ladder where everyone who's finished the process gets added to that ladder. Now, they'll be added to the ladder based on merit, or based on the final applicant score that they achieve. Now, naturally, those applicants with the best scores are placed at the top of the list, and then everyone falls in behind based on the score that they achieve throughout the application process. Now, like any job, they're going to select the best applicants. So the fact that you may have passed everything is no guarantee that you'll be selected. You need to have scored well enough to be in a position where you're high enough up the top of the list there, where you'll be selected for the next squad. So let's go into this in a little bit more detail. If you are on that order of merit, you're waiting to be offered a position. Of course, other applicants are still filling up the funnel and will get to the end of the process too. Now, when that happens for those new applicants, they'll be given a score, just like you will have been, and then they will be placed on the order of merit. Now, they're placed onto that ladder based on their merit, based on the score that they achieved. So that could mean that some applicants are ahead of you on the list and some applicants may not have scored well as you, and so they're placed below you on the waiting list. Now, while that's happening, other applicants are coming along behind. Those applicants are waiting for their scores to be tallied and then they'll be placed on the list. Now, here's the thing. If they are positioned higher than you on the list, they will effectively push you down the list. Hey, that's not fair. I've been waiting for 3 months. A new applicant comes along with a better score, they jump the queue. It's a merit-based system. The good scores go to the top, and it could very well mean that other applicants are pushed down. Now, those applicants who are at the top of the list, naturally they will be selected and they'll go off to the police academy. Great, that means there's now space above for everyone else to move back up the list again. Now, this is why we affectionately call it the yo-yo list, because you could move up, but then again, other applicants might come along behind and start the process all over again and end up pushing you back down again. So you can go up and down this list and never quite score well enough to get into the academy. So understanding this order of merit, the last thing before we move on is to understand that there is in fact a threshold, or there is a score or a level where you need to be higher than that score in order to be unaffected by this yo-yo scenario. Those applicants who are below the threshold are likely to experience that yo-yo scenario. But if you score well enough and you're high enough up the list, the majority of applicants coming along after you won't impact on you. They won't affect your position on the list. Now, some applicants will still go higher than you and some will go lower than you. It ultimately comes down to how well you can score going through that process. Now, what score is the threshold? Where is that line? Well, that will depend a lot on how many squads are available to be filled, how many applicants are coming through the process, and how good those applicants are, how competitive those scores are. If every applicant that's coming through is of fantastic quality and a really high standard, and they're all scoring really well, that's going to make that competitive nature even stronger. So there's a few moving parts that determine whether the threshold is at your level or higher, or well below your level. You can't really control any of those things, but what you can control is the effort, the time, the preparation, the work that you put in to your application to make sure you're getting the very best score that you can get. Okay, so if you take nothing else from what we've spoken about so far, forget about everything else that I want to share with you. If you just remember that, I just want to pass, I just want to pass. That's not the attitude. I just want to get the best possible score I can. Needs to be the attitude that you take into this process. Okay, so let's move on to some other things that you can address to help make sure that you get the maximum possible score as you're going through the application journey. In particular, some of these things that are happening in the background. I'll provide you with a checklist that you can download with some actions you can take to get as many of these squared away as possible as you prepare yourself for the police application. All right, let's jump into the next component.